Alright, Kingdom Ethics, Chapter 7. Just war, nonviolence, and just peacemaking. A preface. I'm clearly not in class. I'm playing a baseball game. And I will be playing one Friday as well, which is why I have to do my presentation over video. I'm highly uncomfortable doing this, so I'm just going to get that out in the open. I'd much rather be there, staying in front of you talking. So, let's get the show on the road. The basics. So basically, the chapter outlined three questions to me. What is peace? What is the effect of righteousness? And what best resembles Christian faithfulness to Jesus in a sinful world? And that is in regards to war tactics, process of going through war or getting into a war. So, basically, we want to know what is peace. And the book defines peace as one of the 5 marks of the kingdom of God. And then it goes on to say, peace, justice, and compassion come as a single package. They depend on each other because they are part of God's will and God's action of deliverance. So then we want to know about what is the effect of righteousness. And the effect of righteousness will bring peace, and the result of righteousness is quietness and trust amongst people forever, or trust amongst anyone forever. So then once we've seen what peace is and what it can do and how its effect of righteousness can help bring peace to the world, we need to see the main points that chapter has laid out. And those are, the first one is the 8 rules of just war. So we want to know, how were these 8 rules of just war developed? So it was an effort to make sense, obviously. So it was to make sense of biblical witness, but also clearly inspired by Stoic philosophers who had already undertaken considerable development of the just war tradition. So, going on, it was in order to justify killing. So, there must be a reason so important that it overrides the truth that killing people is wrong. So, killing in war has to be justified because killing people is wrong. So, and lastly, it's a necessity to vindicate justice. Resorting to violence may be overcome only by the necessity to vindicate justice and to protect the innocent against unjust aggressors. So, this is how the 8 rules of just war were developed. So, we'll look at these 8. So, just cause. Just cause basically is causes that can override presumptions against killing. It is the prevention of large massacres or preventing systematic and long-term violation of the human rights. The human rights are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So an example of this is the Pakistani army massacring East Pakistani people. In this situation, India stepped in and stopped the violence, or stopped the large massacres and the violation of human rights. In this case, India's actions are justified. So then we go on to just authority. Just authority. So we need to define authority. First, it's a body, organization, or coalition. So an example would be the United States Constitution, in which the power to go to war is granted to Congress, not the president. Or an even larger organization is the United Nations. So basically, we can define just authority as not being able to start a war in which many will die and the masses will be maimed, in which the maiming is irresponsible. So I had to look up the definition of maimed just to make sure I was on the right track, and it's to wound or injure someone so that part of the body is permanently damaged. So in this case, I inferred that maiming would be to totally and permanently decimate a population of people. So this goes on to say that you need to follow a process to engage war. And that process is to go through the right channels of the Constitution or the United Nations. So I think that's good for that. So last resort. Basically, war is the last resort. So what it is, all means of negotiation, conflict resolution, and prevention must be exhausted before resorting to war. The logic behind this is when killing in war is justified because it is the only way to stop a greater evil. So, the greater evil is to be a base in which a war is based on the just cause rationality, and it has to be a moral cause. So, then we'll move on to just intention. So basically, final cause or the future aim is synonymous with the just intention, where the only intention is to get peace for all. So what is not justified? So basically, these things can't be your just cause or final outcome or future gains of a war. So economic gain. So this references to World War I, where Germany sent a blank check to Austria-Hungary and said, "Hey, we will give you," or excuse me, I'm misunderstanding the story, but basically, one side wants an absurd amount of money, and if they don't pay it up, they will be invaded. So, another not justified reason for war is revenge. So we can look at the War of 1812, when England basically was upset because they lost the Revolutionary War. So they started a war with the United States then, and lost, thankfully. Then conquest. We can look at Napoleon and his conquests and how massive his empire became. That's not a justified cause. And then ideological supremacy. I mean, this is pretty clear. Nazi Germany of World War II, where the Aryan race was to reign supreme. So basically, we need to find out the true aim of war and what it is. So the aim of war must be to create a more secure world, less vulnerable to terrorism, safer for domestic men, women, and children. The final aim is not to be absolutely safe, but safer. Number 5, probability of success. A well thought out calculation. Basically, you have a reasonable chance of success, so you have to look at the death toll projection and the underlying economic gain, or is the economic gain your true motivation? So it is wrong to enter a war in which you will deprive many people of the opportunity of life, in which they will die in vain of a failed goal. And there's a really good quote that I wanted to mention. Too many lives have been lost too frequently in blind, petty feudal. So, I mean, I think this quote really sums up the probability of success. It's just making sure that what you're doing when you go into war is not just a petty, for lack of a better term, a cat fight in which you're gonna just massacre people by accident. Number 6, proportionality of cost. So we need to look at if the good outweighs the evil. Will the total good in victory be far beyond the evil and suffering that the war will bring about? I mean, war is bad and evil, and is the victory going to outweigh that? So no one should be prescribed a cure that is worse than the disease itself. That was from the book, and I really like that quote as well. So, clear announcement. Okay. A governing body must make a clear announcement of an engagement of war and the intentions of the war. Stipulations for avoiding the war must be presented. If all verbal conditions are not met, then the war is an acceptable action. An example of this is President Bush after 9/11, and President Bush made a public announcement prior to his attack on Afghanistan. Requirements weren't met, thus the engagement was enabled. We can look at another bad example, which is Vietnam. There was no announcement, just straight to engagement. So, the last one is just means. The chapter really emphasized the justice in war. The Latin is jus in bello. Not 100% sure what that means, but I know it means justice in war. Proportionality of cost must be applied to the decision-making process of going to war. It must also be used while the war is going on. This is an ongoing process. It's being developed. Like at some point, is the death toll far beyond what we assumed it would be? So, a frequent error, emphasizing the justice of the cause. We overlook the requirements that the means of fighting must be just. So, um, the war must be fought by just means, is basically what these two phrases are summing up. So now we jump into how to not apply the just war. Poor means of application, or bad intentions of war. Revenge, hate, racism, economic greed, power hungry, stereotyping of the enemy, and self-righteousness. These seek to use the just war theory as rationalization for killing. It pays minimal attention to the war's actual logic and the criteria for war. So now we'll jump to a second style, I guess, for lack of a better term again. Nonviolence pacifism. So basically, this was practiced for the first 300 years of the church. But we need to know what is a Christian pacifist and what is the first argument for pacifism and how not to argue for nonviolence. So, a Christian pacifist is committed to making a clear witness to the way of Jesus Christ. So, now that we know what it is, let's look at the first argument. It takes on the way of Jesus and the witness of the New Testament. The New Testament becomes the authority for our witness, and the main point is to be faithful to Jesus by the example set by Jesus. And so now further there's two types of pacifists. One is committed to nonviolence by obligatory rule. They never make war or act violently. The second is committed to nonviolent lifestyle because they want a life committed to Christ. It differentiates between the two, but it never says which one is better or worse. So, Christians should renounce violence. This is all from the book. We can't expect non-Christians to do the same. This is bad. Peacefully try to sway people from the violence. So what this is saying is we should expect non-Christians to partake in nonviolence. We should try and sway them to a nonviolence type perspective. That's kind of what we're called to do in this time of war and violence. So that's my understanding of this section of the chapter. Okay, yep, got that. Okay. Oh, the last thing. So what to do? So now that we're told what we are requested to do, I guess, is prod the government and the leading bodies. Dig into them and try and get them to take a more passive stance on war. So, and the last one is just peacemaking, the third paradigm for ethics of war and peace. So basically, this raises a bunch of questions. What steps can be taken to prevent war? What practices lead to peace? What is this theory? Why is this theory necessary? What is the primary focus of this theory, and how to apply peacemaking? So, sorry about that. Just peacemaking poses these three questions. The aim of just peacemaking, where we are focusing on effective ways to prevent terrorism and war. How to apply peacemaking. We need to support nonviolent, direct actions. Examples would be like Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi. We need to take independent initiatives to reduce threats. These threats could be visible. These actions should be visible, verifiable. We need to make an announcement of purpose for attempting to reduce these threats. We need to not allow the initiator of the movement to become weak. Don't wait on the slow process of negotiations. And we need, lastly, carry out peacemaking acts regardless of the other side's opposition. Then point 3, cooperative conflict resolution. Example could be President Carter and his Camp David, Egypt, and Israel work, and Haiti and North Korea. His coming to terms in those two situations. So 4, acknowledgement of responsibility. Um, the example the book gave of this is the churches of Germany in World War II. At one point in time during that war, the churches realized what the Nazi Party was doing is wrong, so they came out and acknowledged it and helped try and start a peacemaking movement against the Nazi regime. So, lastly, fifth part of how to apply peacemaking: promote democracy and human rights. Point 6, foster sustainable economic growth. The key word there is to sustainable. Sustainable. We need to, as a peacemaking group, we need to find ways to, not like distribute wealth so everyone has it, but give everyone opportunity to build sustainable incomes and wealth. The 7th point the book makes is strengthen the United Nations, and 8th, reduce offensive weapons trades. So, how not to apply just peacemaking. It's not good to say it is better than pacifism or just war. Support just peacemaking for what it contributes. Discuss all the options, not just the one that you like. Or this other way people apply it in the wrong way is, if all else fails, the government will step in. That's not a good plan of attack. So, hopefully this isn't too miserable for y'all. I tried my best, and I'm not the most technologically savvy person, so hopefully this works. Adios.